Olabisi found herself drawn back to the market day after day, a compulsion she could neither explain nor resist. She began using the flimsiest of excuses, a need for new spices for the palace kitchen, a desire for a specific dye for her loom. Her maids would trail behind her, confused by this new, frequent interest in the common market. Her true destination was always the same, the potter's stall. She would watch, hidden by the crowd, as Ayodele's skilled hands shaped formless lumps of clay into beautiful, functional vessels. She saw how he treated every customer with patience, how he gifted small, perfectly formed cups to children, and how he laughed, a sound that was warm and genuine. Each observed act was a stone added to the foundation of her affection. She was falling in love not with a fantasy, but with the quiet dignity of his work and the kindness in his soul, a stark contrast to the boastful idleness of the wealthy suitors who still plagued her father's court. One afternoon, a sudden, torrential downpour sent the market into a chaotic scramble. Olabisi's maids shrieked, gathering her fine clothes to shield them from the rain. In the confusion, Olabisi slipped, her foot sliding in the quickly forming mud. A strong, steadying hand caught her elbow, preventing a fall that would have ruined her dress and her dignity. It was Ayodele. "This way, quickly," he urged, leading her under the modest overhang of his stall's roof, a space suddenly intimate and sheltered from the world. The scent of wet earth and clay was potent. They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the drumming rain. "I see you often, my lady," Ayodele finally said, his voice gentle. "You seem to have a great interest in common clay." Olabisi's heart raced. "I have a great interest," she whispered, her courage surprising her, "in the hands that shape it with such love." Under the shelter of the stall, the world narrowed to the two of them. Ayodele, emboldened by her presence, picked up a small lump of clay. "It is not just about shaping it," he said, his fingers working nimbly. "It is about listening to it. The clay tells you what it wants to be." As he spoke, he fashioned a small, perfect rose from the clay, its petals delicate and lifelike. He offered it to her. It was a gift of no monetary value, yet to Olabisi, it was worth more than all the gold in her father's coffers. It was a piece of his soul, a symbol of his creativity and patience. In that moment, any lingering doubt vanished. She knew, with a certainty that shook her to her core, that this was the man she loved. The rain ceased as quickly as it had begun, and the reality of their situation rushed back in. Olabisi's maids, frantic with relief, found her. "My lady, we must return at once." As she was led away, she clutched the clay rose to her chest, a secret treasure. Ayodele watched her go, his own heart a tumult of hope and despair. He was a potter, she was a nobleman's daughter, her worth proclaimed in gold. What future could they possibly have? The gulf between their stations seemed as wide and uncrossable as the great ocean, and his hope felt as fragile as the clay trinket she now carried. Back in the palace, Olabisi's absence had not gone unnoticed. Her father, the Olori, summoned her. His face was a mask of stern disappointment. "The chief Elitu has increased his offer by 20 cattle, he stated, his voice leaving no room for argument. "He is a man of great standing. These wanderings to the market, they must cease. They are beneath you and they spark gossip." Olabisi felt a cold dread grip her. She looked at her father, a man she had always loved, and saw a stranger blinded by wealth and status. She knew then that a direct plea for Ayodele would be futile. She had to be clever, too. Find a way to show her father the truth. Desperation led Olabisi to the one person in the palace who had always understood her, her grandmother, Iya Agba. The old woman lived in a quiet hut on the palace grounds, her face a roadmap of a long and wise life. Olabisi knelt before her, pouring out her heart, speaking of Ayodele's kindness, his skill, and the love that had taken root in her soul. Iya Agba listened silently, her old eyes missing nothing. When Olabisi finished, she sighed. "Child," she said, her voice like the rustling of dry leaves, "the heart wants what it wants. But to move a mountain, you need more than a whisper, you need an earthquake." Iya Agba's counsel was cryptic but direct. "You cannot fight your father's greed with mere words. You must show him that the value he chases is an illusion. You must make him see the true wealth in this potter." She proposed a test, a dangerous one. During the upcoming festival of the New Yam, a great feast would be held. It was tradition for the Olori to commission a grand ceremonial pot from which the blessings would be poured. "The potter, Ifunmi, who has made this pot for decades, has fallen ill," Iya Agba revealed. "There is chaos in the court. Suggest a contest. Let all the potters in the kingdom try their hand. Let the best pot win." With her grandmother's wisdom fortifying her, Olabisi went to her father. She found him arguing with his stewards about the ceremonial pot. Seeing her chance, she spoke with a calmness she did not feel. "Father," she began, "this is a sign. The gods are not pleased with the usual. Why not hold a contest? Let every potter in Oyo create a vessel. The one whose work most pleases the eye and spirit will be chosen. It will show the people that you value true talent and divine favor over mere tradition." The Olori, desperate for a solution and seeing an opportunity to appear wise and just to his people, agreed. A proclamation was sent across the kingdom. When Ayodele heard the proclamation in the market square, his heart leapt, then sank. This was his chance, a sliver of light in the impossible darkness. But the pressure was immense. He spent days and nights at his wheel, experimenting with shapes and designs. He sought not to create something merely large or ornate, but something that held meaning, that told a story of the land and its people. He decided to inscribe the pot with the ancient Adinkra symbols for love, faithfulness, and community. He was not just making a pot, he was pouring his love for Olabisi and his homeland into the clay. The day of the contest arrived. The palace courtyard was filled with potters and their creations. Massive, intimidating vessels, pots glistening with gaudy glazes, and overly intricate designs meant to impress with their complexity. Ayodele's pot, covered by a simple cloth, seemed humble by comparison. When it was his turn, he unveiled it. A gasp rippled through the crowd. It was not the largest, but it was breathtakingly beautiful. Its form was elegant and balanced, and its surface was carved with intricate, meaningful symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. It was a masterpiece of artistry and soul. The Olori and his chiefs walked among the entries. The Olori paused at the large, gaudy pots, nodding in approval at their obvious expense. But when he reached Ayodele's pot, he stopped. He was a man of wealth, but not entirely without feeling. He reached out and ran a hand over the smooth, cool clay, tracing the symbols of unity and strength. For a fleeting moment, he saw beyond the price tag. He saw artistry. "This one," he murmured, almost to himself. "There is a spirit in this one." He declared Ayodele the winner. Ayodele's victory was a triumph, but it was short-lived. When the Olori learned the name of the winning potter, his face darkened. This was the same commoner his daughter had been seen near. This was no coincidence, it was a challenge. He summoned Ayodele to the court. "Your work is adequate," the Olori said, his voice cold. "You will be paid your due. But know this, my daughter's hand is not a prize for a contest. It is a transaction for the future of this kingdom. Do not confuse your temporary success for a change in your station." The words were a deliberate, public humiliation, designed to shatter the young man's hope. The public rebuke was a crushing blow. Ayodele left the palace, the joy of his victory turned to ash. He believed he had failed Olabisi. He stopped going to his stall, wallowing in his despair. He decided that his love for her was a selfish thing, only causing her trouble and himself pain. He resolved to let her go, to free her from the impossible dream he represented. He began to pack his few belongings, intending to leave Oyo in the memory of the beautiful maiden who was forever beyond his reach. Olabisi, hearing of her love's despair and his plans to leave, knew this was her final stand. She could not let him go without a fight. Disregarding all protocol and safety, she slipped from the palace alone as dusk fell. She ran through the winding paths to the small, simple compound where Ayodele lived. She found him, a solitary, heartbroken figure, tying his meager possessions onto his donkey. "Ayodele," she called out, her voice breathless and fierce. He turned, his eyes wide with shock and fear for her safety. "If you leave, you take my heart with you," she declared. "And a kingdom without a heart is already a ruin." Her words were a bomb and a fire. He saw the unwavering love in her eyes, a love that was brave enough to defy a king. In that moment, his despair transformed into a fierce, protective resolve. He would not run, he would stay and fight for her, with her. They stood together in the twilight, their hands clasped, their plan forming. They would go to the Uni, the supreme ruler of the Yoruba people, whose wisdom was legendary. It was a perilous journey, and to appeal to the Uni over her own father was an act of ultimate defiance, but it was their only hope. Preparing for their journey required stealth and help. Olabisi returned to the palace and once again sought out Iya Agba. The old woman did not chastise her, instead, she nodded with a grim pride. She provided them with provisions, a map of the less traveled paths, and her blessing. "The Uni values the soul of a man, not the size of his barn," she whispered. "Now go, and may the ancestors guide your feet." Under the cover of a moonless night, Olabisi and Ayodele slipped out of the Kingdom of Oyo, Two shadows against the vast, sleeping landscape, their love the only light guiding them forward. Their journey was fraught with hardship. They traveled through dense forests where the sunlight was a memory, and across wide, arid plains where the sun was a torment. They faced thirst, hunger, and the constant fear of pursuit. Yet, with every shared struggle, their bond deepened. Ayodele's strength and resourcefulness kept them safe, while Olabisi's unwavering spirit kept hope alive. They were no longer a princess and a potter, but two halves of a single, determined soul, their love forged in the fires of adversity, stronger and more precious than any metal. After many days, they reached the great city of Life, the spiritual home of their people. The majesty of the city was overwhelming, but they had no time for awe. They went directly to the gates of the Uni's palace and threw themselves on the mercy of the guards, begging for an audience. They were brought before the Uni, a man of immense presence and calm authority. Kneeling before him, they told their story, not as a tale of rebellion, but as a plea for the recognition of a love that honored the true values of their culture: kindness, creativity, and integrity. The Uni listened in profound silence. When they finished, he looked from Olabisi's determined, tear-streaked face to Ayodele's humble but resolute one. He saw the truth in their eyes. He sent a messenger to the Dowry of Oyo, summoning him to Life immediately. The Dowry arrived, furious and defensive, expecting to retrieve his wayward daughter. Instead, he found himself standing before the Uni, who held up the small clay rose Olabisi had kept safe throughout their journey. "Tell me, Dowry," the Uni asked, his voice echoing in the great hall. "How many cattle is the creativity of this man's hands worth? How much gold equals the devotion in your daughter's heart? You have confused the price of things with their value, and in doing so, you have almost lost a treasure far greater than any dowry." The Dowry, humbled before the wisdom of his supreme ruler, could only bow his head in shame.